Today I'm chatting with Arthur Iliopoulos. Through both his own family's grassroots efforts and his workplace Drake Supermarkets corporate sponsorship, Arthur has been involved in raising over $600,000 for HeartKids.
It's so raw. It's hard to even talk about generally, but when you are aware of what is happening in this HeartKid hurdle for so many people, you are humbled with what you've got.
Before we begin, we'd like to acknowledge that we're recording on the traditional country of the Kaurna people of the Adelaide Plains. We pay respects to elders past, present and emerging. We pass that respect to any Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander listeners. So tonight, I'm actually in the studio with Arthur, and I'm told this is the first time we've actually had two people present in the podcast room. So welcome, Arthur.
Thank you, Sami. It's an honour to be here and an honour to be with you.
It's quite the journey, isn't it, Arthur, for you and I?
Yes, we've known each other for a little while through our journeys, and very humbled to be a part of it here tonight with you and to be here in the studio. You were one of the first people that I ever met regarding HeartKids at an event. So, lots of humble memories from then and lots grown since.
Oh, that's really special. So for those listening, Arthur, I'm very familiar with your story and your beautiful daughter, Zoe. But would you like to share with us your CHD journey?
Of course. Yeah, our little beautiful Zoe, our first child, first of three. We have Zoe, we have Leo, and then we have little Evelyn. Zoe was born with no knowledge of us having any hurdles or heart hurdles, but she did, by day 5, our paediatrician noticed that something needed to be checked on her heart and wanted a cardiologist to have a thorough look. And he did, and the cardiologist found that she had a fairly large VSD, I believe, and they were all fairly comfortable about it at the time because they said, look, everyone could be born with it. It goes away. It could, it couldn't. So we saw the cardiologist within 2 weeks of her birth, and that's when he highlighted the fact that she had a mitral valve prolapse. So, basically a valve not working on her heart, making her heart beat a little bit faster than it should. And that's how we started our journey with our little heart warrior, I suppose. So, back then.
Confronting being your first child.
Yes.
That would have been a lot for yourself and your wife to process because it's such a joyous, magical thing to have the ability to have children, isn't it? And then to be faced with that, like you said, only 5 days into that baby
so 5
bubble.
days, And like you said, it's magical. We took a few years to have our first child, and the pressure that a couple, but especially Doreen, my wife, went through for that uncertainty we were going through the pregnancy of your first time, not understanding it. As much as a husband is there, during that process, it's not the same. You could really, I appreciate it a lot more now with the second and third births of our children, what Doreen and as a mother, what they go through, and then to have that knowledge put in front of you about your child, your perfect child. And it's funny about that perfect child, isn't it? Because Zoe can do anything wrong and she's still perfect to me. So she's our perfect child and she's our little heart warrior.
And so how old was Zoe when she had her surgery?
Yeah, so Zoe was 3, and we keep going on about 3 because that was my lucky number. But at 3, we were sent to Melbourne, stayed there for a couple of weeks. There was quite a few delays, and that's when our journey sort of made us aware of what happens in a journey. You think you just go there, you think they just keyhole surgery and you'll be out the next day and it's fixed. And as a parent, you are given in detail what's going to happen to your 3-year-old child and how does that change. And even what they tell you in the detail they tell you from the chance then of actually seeing Zoe after the fact, it just, again, I was one of those people that just walked into the ECU and collapsed.
Yeah.
They show you photos, they tell you what it's all going to be like, but I wasn't too strong on that morning, but little Zoe was, and that was our journey through that time. So 2 weeks, met some amazing people, and that's probably why my family and I have made an effort since then to raise awareness, but also meet people like yourself and be inspired to help my daughter be inspired. That comes from people like you, the people we met, or the people that have passed. Very inspirational journey. It's a really weird one.
There's lots of moments, isn't there? There's moments like you just spoke about walking into the room and collapsing. And it's interesting that you say, you weren't the strong one, but I don't see it that way. I see it that you're human and you're a parent and you do anything to trade places. And that was that moment, wasn't it?
Yep.
Yeah. So
you have no control there. You've just got 1,000 wires. You've got some beautiful people taking care of her, but it just makes a difference when you physically see it and you feel it. And like I said to you earlier, it's so raw. It's hard to even talk about generally, but when you are aware of what is happening in this HeartKid hurdle for so many people, you are humbled with what you've got and what you've had and what we're going to do for the future. So, and that's something I want to inspire Zoe to do, to continue, because I think it will be a lot more valuable for a heart child themselves to actually show that courage and that interest of why they want to raise more awareness for what they have and what they've done and what they're going to do. So, yeah.
So we've got Zoe, our new advocate, in the making. Well, she's not just in the making, she's already there, isn't she? She's already there, and with a father in yourself and obviously Doreen championing HeartKids wherever you can. So can you tell me about the first contact that you'd had with HeartKids? Because obviously now your name is synonymous in the HeartKids community down here in South Australia. Yes, it is, Arthur. So, yeah, tell me about that first contact and introduction to HeartKids and why it connected for you.
For sure. I've worked for a company called Drake Supermarkets, where we have supermarkets, independently owned supermarkets in South Australia and Queensland. I had the opportunity once we were diagnosed with what Zoe had, and as we were preparing to get her to Melbourne, there was an opportunity where in the business we have a community dollars program where customers can purchase their groceries and highlight who they'd like to donate part of their groceries to. So every $2 you spend, we just donate 1 cent. Yeah, 1 cent's nothing. You don't have to do anything. You just scan a card and you can choose whether it's raising money for an animal welfare, whether it's raising for cancer, or whether it's raising for HeartKids. At that time, we actually had someone who had started up that program from HeartKids. I was asked by Wendy Drake. She says, look, Arthur, and Wendy and Roger Drake, they're the owners of the business, very close with their staff, considering they have 5,500 staff in 2 states. Wendy came up to me and said, we've got a $531 check for HeartKids. And she goes, that's HeartKids, isn't it? And I said, yes, look, other than getting on the web and Doreen sort of looking into what it was about, with all due respect, I had no idea what HeartKids was about. We didn't meet anyone else. I didn't know anyone else. We were just on our own journey. Yeah. Doreen and I had to pull our socks up and just do whatever it took for Zoe. So we didn't even speak to anyone else other than doctors and our cardiologists and so on. So I attended an event in the city in a hotel, and that's where I was very fortunate to meet someone like yourself. There was another young man by the name of Callum McNair, who is also a heart adult now.
Heart adult now.
And very vigilant with what he does in South Australia. And who else was it? It was Brenner. And we had the opportunity to hand over the check, and we had a little plaque. And, you know, at the time, thought nothing of it. I thought, yeah, we're handing over some money. And then people like yourself and Callum got up and actually spoke. And that day, I was aware of HeartKids. I knew there was some sort of rope there that would pull me in. And from that day, I made an effort to keep in touch with the state manager at the time and say, look, I'm going through our own hurdle. I've got no idea what I'm going to do, but I'd love to keep in touch. And that's all it was. It was no other thought there other than keeping in touch and communicating, because I thought communication was very important in learning a bit more about what Zoe's about to go through. And to be honest, even after that day, until the operation, I never saw or spoke to any of you until after the time, because there was never an opportunity, I suppose, to meet and greet. But that was my first introduction. And funny now, today, here I am, 5-6 years later, in front of you. And who would have thought you would have been one of those inspirations that's helped, people like my daughter and our family to grow. So, yeah. So thank you, Sami.
Oh, honestly, Arthur, you're too kind. I look at what you do every day, and so many people in our HeartKids village, it fills my cup up. It really, really does. If I could, I don't know, win the lotto, I think I could just do this all day, every day.
And when people are aware of something, you see something light up. You see that they want to listen more, or they ask a question, or how is your Zoe now? And the opportunity to not only explain about how she's going, but to show them how she's going. And whether she's having a bad day, sad day, or a happy day, it's the fact that she's still moving.
Yeah.
She's shaking. She's making things happen as a little person, as a little human. And then having her at these events and the HeartKids events and getting her up on stage and allowing her to, I suppose, have more confidence to get up and talk. Because as a woman, I want her to grow up and be proud of what's on her chest, And that's going to be tough for a woman at times to have that. But I want her as a Spartan warrior, because we are of Spartan heritage. I want her to sell that awareness, because I think coming from a Zoe or a Frankie or a Mia or a Max, I think it's important. I think there's more value when it comes from a child that's been through what they don't actually understand. But as they get older, they appreciate what they've gone through. And I think mentally, if you can help a child grow through that manner, and I'm no psychologist, child psychologist, but when a kid's happy, and if you can make a kid happy and you can continue that, I think you're on the right way. So looking forward to that opportunity for Zoe to do that. And if I can help inspire Doreen and the rest of my family, well, then hopefully, like you said in the past, it takes a village to teach a child. And if I can add that village with HeartKids community, well, I think that's a lot more real.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And what you're saying is so powerful. We sit in a role advocating for our children as we would because they're our children, but we advocate in that CHD world, whether it be with education, whether it be with NDIS, whether it be with family, with peers, with health. But like you said, to know that you're creating a little warrior that has got the scar on the chest, but it doesn't define her, but it makes her the powerful woman that she will be.
Hopefully she can use that attitude to inspire others, help others that are going to go through it. And when you're having a tough day, I remember having an ear reconstruction and having 2 weeks sitting in bed. And then here you go, here's this little soldier who 5 days later is sitting up, 1,000 miles pulled back out of you.
Yeah.
Whether you've gone through the shakes, the shivers, the constipation, seeing what I saw in 10 days from my daughter go through, that raw exposure of wanting to see someone healthier and happier. And as I said, even if it's for 10 minutes, and that's the joy we talk about in Drake's about ingredients for every day, because we sell ingredients for every day. And that's why, I randomly knock on your door and say hello and drop off some chocolates. And I know that Frankie, for example, loves Cadbury Caramello and, loves the frogs. And there's a young lad at my way where I live where he loves sweet and sour. And it's getting to know those children to enjoy what they can, because some of them are going to have to go through a lot more struggles. And we're fortunate that Zoe at this stage is very consistent with her heart, and she shouldn't need any more operations, but it shouldn't change her attitude of awareness as well. It should only make it stronger to do that. And look, it's funny how you say that your child's are beautiful pieces of human work, but Zoe is, she's got that kindness. Zoe in Greek to us, it means life as well. So it's very fitting that any kind of nature that Zoe has around other kids and HeartKids. And I see that now as we discuss about a heart child that we're about to meet that may either be struggling or having more operations ahead, she can feel that difference and that love from her to want to help that kid. And we're going to have some fun, Dad. And what chocolates do they like, Dad? If I don't tell Zoe what kind of chocolates that next child loves, she criticizes me and says, we need to find out, what do they like? We need to get it. We've got plenty in the cupboard. I said, I know, but they're for you. Look, it's very humbling to see Zoe now, even at 8 years of age, to want that attitude to say, who are we going to see next? What's the next event? And can I get up on stage and help sell that awareness?
We should really then talk about the fundraising that your family has done. So I know obviously we'll talk about Drake's, but let's really talk about the fundraising you and Yaya have done for HeartKids.
How cool is this woman? So, look, I've been blessed to have a lot of women in my life. I've got 3 sisters. I'm the oldest of 4. Very fortunate to have that strength in our family of women who, like my mum, who, very fortunate. She made lots of Greek biscuits. She learned the traditions of making many Greek sweets. So growing up every day almost, there was a Greek sweet being made in our family somewhere. So you come home and bring the friends over and there's always Greek sweet.
Wow.
So from that perspective, and mind you, this is a mother who also has high levels of multiple sclerosis, has been going through that for the last 27, 28 years.
Wow. And
gets up and has been able to, with Zoe, make a little love heart shape. But they're normally a moon shaped product.
Yes.
And, it's like a shortbread and the Greek version of a shortbread, but we've got crushed almonds in there. We put lots of icing on it. And we've been able to, the last 5 years now, sell a few of those, which has been really good.
Now tell us really, what's a few?
In numbers, I'm not sure the exact numbers. I do have them recorded, but normally about 3,000 or 4,000 sort of each year, and it's growing. We've got a customer base now here in South Australia.
And these are all made by hand?
So these are made by hand in Mum's kitchen.
Zoe
goes in and shakes it, and we normally have icing everywhere. So, we bake, we make. The first couple of years, we were fairly impressed ourselves with how many sold. For me, to raise funds for a charity, I still believe it's something where you don't just give money and get nothing in return. And the idea of the biscuit, and in a Greek tradition, doesn't matter whether you have a wedding, a funeral, you're always eating, yeah?
Yeah.
So the idea was that even if this opportunity arose that you're eating a biscuit, and look, they're very easy to inhale and icing goes everywhere, and there's always a little laugh about there's white icing all over you, but it's a talking point. It's another opportunity to sit down, have a coffee, have a biscuit, and, who doesn't want a Greek sweet? So from that perspective, that grew, and we've been able to, I think it's just over $35,000. Sorry, my mum, Katerina, and Zoe have been able to raise. And look, I'm just the delivery driver. Mum makes it. Zoe sells it. She's the marketing manager. And off we go. But look, over the years, we've been fortunate within Drake Supermarkets to have a lot of suppliers to come on board. Lots of family growers like the Costa brothers who supply all the fresh almonds. And
brilliant. I didn't know that.
Yeah, Goodman and Fielder, White Wings who supply sort of the flours and the sugar. We have Days Eggs. It's a family here in South Australia who have been supplying Drakes for over 40 years. They kindly donate all the eggs. So from a point where Mum was basically donating her time and expense to be able to make the product, now we've been able to get suppliers and some people on board and, again, raise that awareness.
So you're the General Operations Manager at Drake's Supermarkets. And for our listeners in other states, Drake's is a major supermarket chain both in South Australia and Queensland, which Arthur touched on a little bit earlier. But to put in perspective, so that's 60 Drake stores. It's the largest independent grocer retailer in Australia. So tell us about your career at Drake's and how you've progressed to becoming into the ops manager role that you're in now. And then I suppose I'd love to then hear then about that journey, but then also too how you've brought Drake's into the HeartKids village.
Yeah, for sure.
As you said, the seed was already sown, but I think you fertilised it.
Yeah, look, it's a family business. As much as we have 5,500 staff now in 2 states, you've got a lovely man by the name of Roger Drake and a woman by the name of Wendy Drake. And those two, for the last 50 years, have ran a business as big as it's become now, but with the family attitude and the attitude of get to know your people. Yeah. I've only ever been told off once by Roger Drake, and this was over the phone. And he basically said to me, he asked me the question about a store manager. He said, do you know that store manager's wife's name? I said, no. He goes, do you know that store manager's football team? I said, no. He goes, does the store manager have children? He goes, I said, I don't know. He goes, so you don't know anything about the most senior store manager in your state? I said, well, no, I don't know. And he said, why don't you know that? He goes, I'll tell you what. I said, because I've never asked. He goes, that's right. He goes, you need to know your people.
Yeah.
And that's one thing that Roger and Wendy Drake have always known. If it's your birthday, if it's your mum's birthday.
How powerful.
Wendy Drake will text or ring and say, happy birthday, I hope you have an awesome week. And she does that with so many of our staff that she's, I suppose, helped me understand the importance of getting to know your people. And that's one thing, whether it's in work, whether it's through my wife, whether it's the neighbour, is getting to know your people. And that old story of surrounding yourself with good people, I think, starts from that journey. So, yeah, look, 30 years this year in Drake Supermarkets. Very fortunate as a young man to grow up in the independent retail supermarket chain. My father had independent supermarkets, and we had gone through a stage where after 21 years in business, Dad had lost the businesses through bankruptcy.
Oh, okay.
You know, the state bank collapsed here. I was about 17, 18.
Wow.
You know, lost a couple of homes, lost his parents' home. $300,000 or $400,000 back then was a lot of money in the 80s.
Yes.
And all of a sudden, we're at a point where we're renting, and my sister and I, my older sister and I, Desi, went to work at Woolworths, and I went to work at Coles. And then I was in Coles for about a year, and I had a phone call at the front desk of Coles, and it was Roger Drake. So Roger Drake actually rang looking for me at the Coles store, put through, asked me to come in for an interview, knew of my family, and basically that's how it started. I was put into the service deli at the store at Torrensville, and Roger said, I want you to make these hot chickens dance. And I said, what do you mean? He goes, well, make them dance. And I literally picked up a chicken and I made it dance. He goes, no. Make them dance into the trolley to the customers' stomachs and into their home.
Sure.
What are you going to do about it, Arthur? And the idea was about, well, how are you going to cook it? How are you going to spice it up more? How are you going to get on the PA and spruik it? And how are you going to make sure that the customer that always wants that chicken a little bit more well cooked, you're going to go up to that customer when she comes and say, look, I've got the right one here for you. So from that perspective, Roger helped me learn how to sell.
Yeah.
Whether it was selling a hot chicken, whether it's selling yourself or selling something to be aware of. So back then it was being aware of our hot chickens, make our chickens dance. So look, massive opportunity through the last 30 years to work through the Drake's family in the fresh food departments, through management, and obviously now into operations. So, yeah, look, it's been a great journey. There's staff that have been with us for 40, 49, 50 years this year. So, look, I'm still one of the young ones, but in regards to inspiration from someone to help me as a human grow, I think that's where I've had that opportunity to do that, whether it's my family or the people that I surround myself with. And look, fortunately met my lovely wife in the business as well. So lots of ticks for Roger at the moment.
I was about to say, Drake's is coming across as a very special place, isn't it? Chicken stance, you find your wife, and there's career progression and get to know your people. So how did you make that conversation bigger than in that workplace? So obviously, hearing you just saying that about Wendy and Roger, I wasn't aware. I have met them. They're warm people. You feel them, especially like, I'm not saying Wendy's warmer than Roger, but Wendy has this beautiful warmth. So obviously they knew you because that's their motto, get to know your people. So they knew you and they obviously knew you were going through this yourself and Doreen with Zoe. And so then I'm assuming you took some time off and then you came back to work. So when did you start that conversation of actually, I really want us as Drakes to champion, like Yaya's doing it and other people are getting involved, but I really want Drakes to champion this.
Yeah, well, look, that old awareness motto, you come back from open heart surgery from your daughter having that journey for 10 or 12 days, and then all of a sudden I was made aware that I had 8 other families in Drakes in South Australia that were HeartKids.
Wow.
And all of a sudden you ask the question and get to know some of the people. And what do I find? And one of them was one of our guys at one of our stores at Torrensville, and young little Max, set of twins there, and young Maxie had his first hurdles in life, his CHD. You start learning about what other people are going through, and it made me a lot more aware of not only the numbers of how many people are attracting this, how many are going through it, but what they've gone through. I mean, some families don't even have time to even cuddle their kids before it's time to take them home.
Yeah.
They are taken on a helicopter, on a plane, and flown straight to Melbourne. And what would you do then? You know, you got twins. And it really made me aware of how much it had to be made aware.
Yeah.
It made me understand and it made me appreciate the hurdles that others were going through, and it helped me. It made me understand that my little journey was still an important one, but there was so much more out there that through others' journeys, I was able to help mine,
Sure.
And talking about it with some of those parents. So it basically started with it used to be called Super Boss Day back then.
Yes,
so,
I remember.
In Drake's, we wear a white shirt, black pants and tie, and we're very traditional with that. And we don't have casual days. We've never had a casual day. And I asked Roger about this opportunity with HeartKids to do Super Boss Day. And I said, look, it's about getting bosses in the business to basically dress up as Batman or superhero or whoever you want, and we'll throw money at you to do that. And then Roger came back to me and said, well, look, who's the boss in our business, Arthur? And Roger's always told us, it's the customer.
Sure.
Yeah, he's not the boss. I'm not the boss. It's the customer. He goes, well, what about if you all dress up and then I'll help throw money into it? And let's do that as a one day off. You work it out. Let me know and I'll tell me what you're going to wear. I said, all right, no worries. So we did that opportunity. We did a big setup, and Tanya Potts from HeartKids, our state manager here in SA, helped to set up the first one. And it's the old fancy dress event.
Sure.
You rock up and there's a few people that are dressed up as a superhero and,
Some have gone all out.
Some just absolutely
Some have just
love
popped
it.
a mask on.
Some have spent months trying to build their costume, and you got others that are just wearing a T-shirt and are happy, yeah? And I think we raised just over $22,000 in that week. And then the idea came up about, well, let's make it a month, but let's dress up and let's have a lead up to those days. And would you believe, I think it was the second year, it was just over $130,000.
Yep.
And let me tell you, I was at a Halla Cove store. I had Zoe in the back of my car. She had started with me at 7 a.m. We'd gone to see 14 supermarkets in that day.
Wow.
We had meetings in the city. We had Channel 7, Channel 10, News Radio, everyone who wanted to see her. And by 8:30 that night, I promised them McDonald's. So we went to Macca's at the Halla Cove store there, and I sat there. And when I got the phone call about what we had reached already on that day, let me tell you, the attitude of wanting to make something better within the people. It was our staff that really enjoyed it. The text that I was getting from our staff about, I've worked in this company for 20 years. We've never had something like this. And then John Paul Drake rang me and he says, bro, he goes, I don't know what you've done, but the staff are loving this. You make sure it continues and we'll do this for life.
Oh, gosh.
And let me tell you, $650,000 later, 4 years later again, so just over 5 years, I think our record's just over $198,000 that was raised for that month. And the key day is that last day. And the joy from the staff and the enthusiasm from having HeartKids come into the supermarket, give them a badge.
Yes.
Let them get on the register.
Let them
scan
go.
away.
Beep.
Get in the freezer room where it's minus 25. Jump on a forklift. Frankie, you can eat anything you want. And Frankie looks at me and says, are you sure? And I'm like, you can eat anything. This confectionery aisle, in the fruit, popcorn, whatever you want, you can eat today because you are our star of the day. And I think the attitude of our staff seeing a little heart kid at the store and actually having fun and flying around like they're Superman really gave our staff, I think, that emotion. And I say that to Tanya, our state manager here, about I think emotion's important because that's what I remember about my Zoe is the emotion, the raw emotion that I felt when I walked into that room.
Yeah.
You know, I'm a fairly confident young man, but I can tell you now, my confidence on that day when I walked into that room, even though I'd read books and I was shown videos and I was told by other heart kid families, that raw emotion will never go away. But that emotion is what makes you remember and wants to make you do something better about it. And that's something that in our family has grown, and people like our staff have taken that on board. And isn't it funny? You know, we've got staff now that want to take ownership of it and are coming up with ideas with getting their local schools. Or we have one of our Golden Grove shopping centres here. It's the largest shopping centre we have, Drake Supermarket in South Australia. And now we've got a Batman here. Who knew that Adelaide had its own Batman with Batmobiles? This guy's got 3 Batmobiles. And Reno D'Alfonso, he is amazing. And when it comes to children, even more amazing. And puts on that tight suit and he won't eat or drink for 10 hours. But let me tell you, the passion of that gentleman, again, raising awareness of doing that, I think has grown what we need to do to make this a stronger national village, as you call it, for our children. So that's how some of that charity work has started, and we've got a bit of a name of it now in our stores.
Like you said, it's a little over 600,000 now for HeartKids. And so what sort of programs and services do these much needed funds go towards?
Yeah, look, the main thing that we've been able to do is the support, and the support of whether it's care bags, whether it's families that in need. And again, having that relationship with Tanya to be able to sort of, you know, I'm someone who says, Tanya, look, if I can help do something, we can do it as a business. But if there's someone that really needs some help, we've got to go out of our way to do something. That's the one I want you to tell us about, because that's the one that just drives us a little bit more. That say, you know what, they've had it tough. Let's try and do something for them. And it's not even advertising it. Yeah, that's one thing Roger and Wendy Drake don't do. They don't advertise it everywhere. Yeah, look, we advertise and say that we've raised a certain amount of money for the children, but we put that in our own catalogues. We put that as an awareness opportunity to show people that HeartKids logo and that we are involved with HeartKids. That awareness to us adds a lot more value. And through this event, we've been able to now produce a Drake's and HeartKids scholarship. So who would have thought 5 years ago when my daughter was there on that table that the company that I work for, and I have to say the idea of Tanya Potts here in SA to come and collaborate some opportunity where we can put some of that money aside, and inaugurally last year offer that to 8 or so children in Queensland or SA to be given the opportunity to earn a scholarship, whether it's in arts and science or one of the young ladies playing hockey and traveling the world to do that. It's got to work both ways. You just can't keep giving, whether it's money, whether it's time. It's got to work for both parties.
Yes.
There is nothing in this world that allows you just to take and not give back.
Yes.
If it is, it's not successful. It's a fact. So that's something that Drake Supermarkets together with HeartKids has been able to do. And that's something, again, a scholarship. It also secures the relationship with Drake's and HeartKids for long term. And we can also show our staff what that scholarship is actually doing. So if you are
changing lives.
If you are rewarding someone with a $5,000 grant to learn their music or their arts or their calisthenics or being a hockey star, seeing that growth over the years is what our staff love to see. Very humbled to have had that opportunity, because we can see a lot of people, $1 billion worth of sales. And I'm not sure of the amount that we've donated through our Community Dollars program, but not many businesses out there allow charities to do that. Yeah. Very lucky to have that, and looking forward to what other ideas? The staff are the ones, no good idea comes from the office. We say it comes from the shop floor, and the amount of ideas that our staff have come up with to improve next year and to just take it that extra mile. We have competitions with each store about who can raise the most, whether it's through a token, and it's a piece of paper, it's a $2 token, but the customer gets to not only donate that $2 token, but put their name on it, put some ownership to it. That's George, that's Mary, that's Anne, that's our customer, that's a community. And like you said, that's the village, There's a difference of working with a community or just throwing money at something. There's some real value. And that scholarship, I think, has been a really touching thing. We were really humbled to get that on board and really proud of Tanya's idea to highlight that because I think that's going to secure our opportunity with HeartKids and Drake's for many years to come.
So with all that said, Arthur, and it's so beautiful that you could come in here tonight and share your story and share with us your journey, not only just with CHD, but what it's like as a father and a human and how it's, I suppose it breaks you a little, but it also builds you back up a little stronger, don't you think? And I think it's clear that Yaya's genes have definitely gone through the father and the mother into Zoe, because if she's wanting to know Dad, have you found out that kid's chocolate yet?
Yeah.
It's really beautiful. It's beautiful for people, I hope, to hear what an amazing HeartKids champion you are for Australia-wide, the community. So I suppose I'd love you to finish off with, what would you say to anyone out there listening going, that sounds like Roger and Wendy and JP all sound really approachable and really lovely. Well, how do I approach this in my workplace? How do I create that?
Yeah, look, it's going back to the basics of getting to know your people. Get to know what it is. And it doesn't have to be an awareness of just someone with CHD. Unfortunately, there's a lot of illnesses out there. There's a lot of hurdles out there for a lot of people. And I think taking the ownership to get to know your people, to understand what they individually do, even if it is something completely different to your journey, they will then want to know more about you because they will feel that a raw emotion that you are genuinely wanting to know about them. And if the fact happens that you meet someone that actually has a heart journey as well, it just takes it to another level,
But on that note, thank you so much, Arthur. Thank you for your time. Thank you for sharing. And thank you for going out there every day and championing HeartKids.
No, thanks for the opportunity, Sami. And I hope everyone out there has an awesome time and keep thriving with your child because it's a great opportunity. And for those that have passed, we really want to remember them for what they mean to all of us.
All of us.
So thank you to them because they make us want to do more. So thank you.
Indeed. Sometimes this podcast talks about some heavy things. If this brings up anything for you or someone you love, it is important to reach out for support. The HeartKids helpline provides support and guidance for anyone impacted by CHD. You can call the helpline on 1800 432 785. To access more information about CHD, as well as support from HeartKids, visit the website at heartkids.org.au. The information on this podcast is not a substitute for medical advice from your doctor or healthcare team. Always talk to your doctor about matters that affect you or your family's health.